on LinkedIn any second. So the stream started on LinkedIn. So welcome Chris, another one of our Ronnies. And as I always say, there aren't 12 of us and none of us are called Ronnie. And Bill, another Ronnie, is joining
Bill's
us.
Here too. Yeah, great.
For this week's live stream. So welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. Thanks for the introduction.
Right, absolutely. Actually, Chris, because this is the first one of these live stream ones that you've jumped on with us, maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and your involvement with the Ronnies.
Well, very briefly, because I know we need to crack on. I'm also a Ronnie, and I've been working with Simon on various businesses over the last 6 or 7 years. My career has been in the media, publishing, crowdfunding as well, which I think might be pertinent to today. So lots of different things that I've done. Yep. So maybe whatever questions come up, I'd be very happy to answer, or do
Brilliant.
my best to answer anyway.
No, absolutely. And as a founder member of the 12 Ronnies, you've got a lot of experience in this field. So let's kick off. If anybody's got any questions at the moment that's coming onto the live stream, either from LinkedIn or anywhere else, if you could post them in the comments, and we'll do our best. Myself, Bill, and Chris will do our best to answer. But we're going to have a particular focus today on anything to do with funding and financial concerns, because we get a lot of questions as mentors about when people are asking us about starting businesses, about funding and the best way to get funding, how to do it. And it's a question that comes up time and time again. And really, to get the discussion going, Bill and Chris, 12 Ronnies, we like to focus people on bootstrapping their startups. We think at this very pre-launch stage that spending your time looking for funding can be a waste of time. There's an awful lot else you can do. And we've talked about some of these things in some of the other live streams. But maybe if we start with you, Bill, bootstrapping, it's a fundamental thing we look at 12 Ronnies. What's your thoughts about bootstrapping as opposed to seeking outside investment and VC, that sort of stuff?
Well, the early stages of validating your idea shouldn't cost very much anyway. And I tell you what, if you're using your own money, you're going to be very careful what you do. You're certainly not going to take any unreasonable risks or do anything silly with it. So being able to successfully bootstrap early on is a good metric for being able to maybe use other people's money later when you deserve it. And that time is you deserve it is when you have a validated idea and people that are connecting with your value proposition.
Yeah, no, that's very poignant, because when I've been mentoring, I find a lot of people concentrate on where can I get investment? I need help with pitch decks for investment, and without being able to show that there's a customer need, Bill, it's quite hard to get investment, isn't it?
Yeah, and the question isn't where can I get investment? The question is where can I find customers that care about what I'm offering?
Yeah.
And that doesn't really cost anything. It's just sweat equity. That's it.
Yeah, completely. And Chris, you've been involved in quite a number of businesses where we and you have been involved in the bootstrapping side of it. Mm-hmm. What other sort of aspects of bootstrapping do you feel add value to the startup idea and the startup itself?
Well, I think it allows you to be agile and flexible. So if you're starting off with no money, then you're having to make decisions which are, it's your money. So you don't want to be wasting it. And so the decisions you make have to be relevant. Otherwise, you might go down some rabbit holes which aren't very productive.
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the questions that we wanted to address and talk about under the sort of this banner of funding and financial concerns is how much capital do I need to get started and sustain operations? Because it's a big unknown, isn't it, gentlemen? It's a big unknown how much capital I need. I don't know whether you've got any views on that.
Well, to quote Steve Blank, a startup is an organization designed for learning, not for not for operations. I mean, there's a difference between a startup and a company. A startup is about learning, and there are costs associated with learning and activities associated with that. And then a business has its own activities, that are associated with being an ongoing concern. So those are really different things and have different activities that cost different amounts of money. So early on, you shouldn't have a lot of the typical expenses of a business because you're not running one yet. You're running a learning organization. So your balance sheet should have things that reflect learning, not the coming and going of goods and services.
That's a really good view of it, and that's such a way of distinguishing a startup, to be looking at it as a learning organization. I love that, Bill. We've got a question just come in on the posted in the comments, so I've put it up on screen. Do future founders appreciate an organization that's bootstrapping in the beginning, or future funders, I mean? So if we're thinking now later on when you're looking at money to scale, what do you think the future funders think about an organization that bootstrapped at the beginning? And any thoughts there, gents?
Well, okay, I'll say something. I don't think in the end it actually matters where the money's come from, but I do think that once you're starting to sell your product or your service and you're starting to get some data, then the fact you've been bootstrapped and made a success of it means that your future investor can see that you are a good manager, you're good with resources, you're good with the money that you've got, and you've had the initiative to go and make the thing successful. So in the end, I think it can be a big advantage.
Thanks, Chris. And I'm also going to add my view on this as well, because one of the negatives about seeking outside investment is relinquishing not just equity, but a level of control. And for some people, they want to take their direction with their idea. And that's not always easy when you're under pressure from somebody who's given you money to help you, but they now have a say in the direction of the company. So often at the really early stage, looking for outside funding is a compromise. And so I'd just like to add that part of it, that there is a compromise with taking other people's money at the beginning.
And in a world where venture capital judges teams better more than they judge ideas and products, a team that's able to successfully bootstrap, as you both are saying, is going to be very attractive to invest in, simply for the quality of the team and their ability to do that. I mean, a story in the news right now here in the United States, not a startup, but Red Lobster restaurant, let their investor, who owns a shrimp concern, have too much influence over their all-you-can-eat shrimp deal, and now the company is in bankruptcy.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I've heard a few similar stories over here in the UK. And actually, that brings us quite nicely to funding sources, because some of the questions that I'm often asked is where can I secure funding? So I am now looking for funding. It's an important part of what I need and what's available. And there is a difference between available funding in the US to the UK and different routes. There's a lot of similarities. You know, there's where do you get your money from? Your personal savings, your friends and family, bank loans, investors, venture capitalists, government grants and subsidies, and crowdfunding. There's a lot of similarities there, but the actual places you go to, I would imagine in the US, are slightly different, and the ecosystem being set up to fund early stage ideas, early stage startups, is a little bit different. Chris, I don't know whether you've got any thoughts about in the UK, first of all, the different sources of funding, whether they're government grants and loans or alternative finance, or the more standard.
Well, I think to start off with, you've got no data. So you need to be generating some results that are related to your idea. So you can either write a business plan and go and have a chat with a bank manager at the bank, which is the traditional view. or you can set up a campaign on the crowdfunding site like Kickstarter, for example, and pitch your idea, do loads of marketing before you start, and then try and convince people to buy perks to help you reach a financial target. And that will be a degree of validation that your idea has got some value in the marketplace.
Yeah, actually, crowdfunding is a very, very interesting approach to raising money. I mean, it's something I've been involved in. I know you have as well, Chris, in the past.
Mm-hmm.
We still are. In that, almost the biggest benefit of crowdfunding is it's showing your ability to get to your potential customers, to find the channels to get to them, because people say, yeah, I'll just get a marketeer. Well, you're actually doing it now. You're finding the channels, you're communicating. You're also validating, because they're effectively pre-ordering with their perks the product that you're selling, or something to do with your business. So it's really exposing your ability to market, to promote your idea, to find an audience, which is extremely powerful. And if you can motivate and find that audience also give you money, you're onto a good thing. But it's not easy money, is what I will say about crowdfunding. It's not easy money, but there are some big benefits.
Essentially it's a month to 6 weeks of a direct mail campaign, and you need to be on it. So it is quite hard work.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say, which I guess will lead into Bill, is that if you're exclusively launching something for the UK market, then the UK population is about a sixth of what it is in the US. So that's one of the big differences, is that the number of people who might be interested in your product, if it's a UK related thing, will be significantly less than the US, because the niches in the US are going to be much larger.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, the US audience, from what I've seen, are much more early adopters, much more willing to take risk than we are in the UK on new products. So it's a really good market for things like crowdfunding and trying to attract early adopters. And Bill, on that, when would you recommend somebody in the US looking for funding? When would you and where would you steer them at the different sort of stages, the different early stages of a startup? They can already have launched and be in an early stage, just acquiring some customers. But where would you guide them?
That was for me, right? Sorry, my internet went out for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
The nice thing about crowdfunding is not only you're finding customers, but you're finding passionate customers, people that are willing to give you money without actually getting anything. In the United States, I think there are more early adopters, but just because there's more people, like Chris was saying, there's 1/6 the people in the UK. Just means there's six times as many crazy people in the United States that are willing to take a $50 bet on your product. So, but then there's also 6 times as many people looking for that dollar. So you still have to you have to deeply understand your customer. You have to be able to go out and get them in person before you can even try to get them on a crowdfunding platform, because if you don't know what drives them, just putting it on the platform doesn't mean anyone's going to reach it, because there's so many products, there are so many things. You'd have to have someone actually looking through it for your product. That's just not going to happen. So what are the things that you can do in your community that can prove that you understand where your customer is, where they live, where they play, who they associate with, where they work, the things they do. How can you know everything about your customer so that you can match your product and where it is and what it does to them, so that it makes it really easy for them to run into your product, to have that eureka moment. It's like, wow, this is great. This is what I've been looking for. And that's your early adopter. They recognize that even if it doesn't even actually exist, or it's broken, or it's sort of half baked, they'll recognize it. And then being able to show that then that's your ticket that says, hey, I should probably get into some sort of crowdfunding model. Or if it's maybe in the social impact space, maybe I should go to a large nonprofit and present my opportunity here, because they do have money to help people, like-minded people who have the same outcomes as their organization. That's kind of the other piece of it. If you're doing something that's out to help people, it's philanthropic in nature, that's a great place to get money, is from some place that's already trying to do that, and maybe wants to do it a little bit better. So those are kind of the different things that you got to do before you try to go big time and have a big disappointment.
Yeah, I'd also say, in terms of timing, Simon, you mentioned when's the right time to try for funding. There are certain times of year, I would say, in general, when you're ready, that's when you look for the money. But there are a couple of times of year when it's probably advantageous not to look for money. One of those would be, in the period running up to Christmas, when everybody's spending their money on Christmas presents. And also January is not a great month, because everybody's not got any money because they've spent all their money over Christmas. And also the summer, I mean, people are going to be away on holiday, so they might not be available to look at your marketing material that you're sending out into a void. So apart from those times of year, I'd say, just launch when you're ready.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, and Bill said about the social impact side of things, in the UK, we have a number of government grants that go out to really two sectors. I'll differentiate them myself in terms of deep innovation. So technology innovation, we have something called Innovate UK. So if you're working at a really innovation stage, at almost inventing stage, you can get government grants to help you pursue the technologies. So, but very few startups are doing that. But there are government resources there. There are also government grants for social impact projects, as such, companies that are doing that are benefiting communities, the environment, and other aspects of helping people. So there's a whole grant system out there, really, to get people going. My advice is, don't rely on the grant system as a business model long term, because you're reliant on one customer then to pay your bills, and
it can take forever.
Go on, Bill.
Yeah, it can take forever. In the United States, it's more kind of on the back end. There are tax deductions that you can take for R&D, for charitable things. In the United States, we've got the thing called the B Corporation now, which is a new model that you can assume a different type of corporate structure for. I think the B standing for beneficial or whatever, but it's designed to be a structure that's more suited to something with a social aspect to it.
What's your thoughts, gentlemen, on loans? Because we have we in the UK, we have a startup loan scheme that's been put in place where you can borrow up to £25,000, but you have to jump through a lot of hoops, and you've got to be creditworthy and all of these things. So it's not. The money does have to get paid back. I don't know what your view on
I think
the early stage loans are.
Yeah, I think before you go for a loan, as we all know, the major reason why businesses fail is that they forget to find out whether they've got any customers. So I think it's quite prudent to find out whether you've got any customers before you ask for a loan. So you've got to get some data. You've got to find out from your market whether you're solving a problem in the marketplace. Is there a pain point that you're solving, that you're giving some relief to? And if you can tell yourself, yes, I've got some data and it's validated, then maybe, in order to get it to the next level, I need to look for a loan.
Yep, that makes sense. I just going to slightly deviate here, because one of the questions that I often get, which is a really difficult one to answer, but maybe we can give it a go, is I'm starting my business, but when will I break even and even start generating a profit? Because we're trying to predict the future, which is next to impossible. But people want to be able to say, well, I've got this idea. I'm now validating it. I'm finding customers. Give me a steer in how long this is going to take. And how long's a piece of string? I don't know whether any of you gentlemen have a view, because I often get asked that and I find it very difficult to answer.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, what I would say is that that's almost the wrong way of looking at it. In that, unless you're independently wealthy, you're probably not jumping straight off into the deep end, to launch something with no backing or no finance coming in. So a lot of the time, this is like a side hustle, or it's maybe something you're doing in your spare time from a 9-to-5 job, or from something else that you're doing. So in a way, breaking even is the point where you might start thinking about doing it as a full-time job, as opposed to putting all your eggs in one basket and then getting worried about, maybe how do you pay the bills? I don't know. What do you think, Bill?
Well, my answer was a little more snarky. The answer to the question is you'll start breaking even when you have customers that want to buy your product at a price that you're able to produce it at.
Yeah.
Well, that's true. And the other truism is that before you launch, you need to find a way of earning money on day one.
Yeah, and that's something when I'm talking to entrepreneurs, sometimes when they're mired in being stuck in various ways, I'll challenge them. Look, just go out today and earn $100. Show yourself that you can earn $100, whether it's your product or anything. Just go out and earn $100. Find somebody who's willing to give you money for something.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's a complete mystery to them, it's probably time to start thinking about something else. Because even on day one, you should be able to show somebody a picture of your product. You should be able to find someone, show a picture of your product, and get a pre-order. I want that. When's it coming out? If you can't do that, then you're just not connecting, and either it's time to do something else in life or a different idea.
Yeah, and this is one of my pet subjects, if you like, the difference between being an entrepreneur and being a business manager. And many people have an idea for a business, and they put together a great plan about the business, and they say, well, finding customers, I just have to employ somebody to do that. Building the product, I just have to employ somebody. I'm going to manage. I'm going to be the CEO of this idea. And unless there is entrepreneurial activity, as you've just talked about, right away, there's very little chance it's going to succeed. It's just very little chance. At this early stage, it's your chance to showcase your entrepreneurship. It's your chance to showcase how to find those first customers, how to get people to part with a little bit of money. That's the skill in it all. Once you get past that hard part, then it gets a bit more managerial. Then it gets a bit more, let's focus on the bigger picture. But it's being laser focused on customers.
I think the other thing is, you're going to scale. You can't just rely on selling product by product by product. It has to be, there has to be repeat customers who are then recommending the product or the service to other people. So as you said, Simon, the first 10 customers or so were very hard to get. But once you got them, then you've got the chance of them then recommending to other people. But it's the easiest people to sell to are people that you've already sold to. So you need to find ways of taking care of the people who are already your customers. And that's a great way of growing the business.
Yeah, from early on, the engine you need to be building is the engine of growth, and that's with your existing customers. It's how many people can you get them to go out and tell about your product, because they'll know exactly who to tell, and it costs you nothing. You may give them a little discount or something, or on the next product, but that's nothing compared to what it costs to actually acquire a brand new customer from the ether.
That's right. Which is why the 80-20 rule is very important. You need to spend 80% of your time on your existing customers and 20% trying to chase new customers.
And the holy grail we look at, and I'd like to do this in another live stream at some stage, is product market fit. Because there's one thing going after early adopters, finding your first few customers, finding those that are interested, but what you want is the product to fit with them, for them to repeatedly use it if possible, for them to gain value, for them to recommend it to their friends and other people. It's actually finding that fit. Then you've got an engine of growth once you can move towards a product market fit. But just to finish on this funding side of things, maybe we could have just a minute or two to talk about when is the right time to seek funding, and when should you avoid looking at funding. And what I mean by that, and I'm going to steer this, is I personally think you should avoid looking at funding when you're at the idea stage. Going and saying to somebody, I'm looking for your hard-earned money to spend on my great idea that I can't prove anybody wants, isn't a great proposition. I know you don't frame it like that, but that's effectively what you're saying. So on that first part, I don't think it's a really good idea to look for money until you validated your idea. But when is the right time? When is the right time, chaps, to look for money?
Go ahead, Chris.
I think you need to have done sufficient experimentation and run tests and tried things out with your potential customers to absolutely know 100% what your product or your service is. So it has to become something concrete. Because if you get money into your business too early, then you're also introducing new voices who might have a different idea from you. So the disadvantage of getting funding is too early is that you're complicating your launch, because it might not actually be what you want to launch in the end.
Bill?
Yeah, to continue that, yeah, you want to have that irrefutably successful value proposition that people are buying, but now you need money to scale or to do something else with it. I think for a startup, really your outcome needs to be, I need to do whatever it takes. I need to learn whatever I need to learn to build a case for an investor. So then all your activity should be around building the data and the story that'll make it impossible for someone to look at it and say, oh, I'm not sure about these people or their product. You want to make it very easy to say, yeah, I want to get involved in that, because if I do, I know I'm gonna make money, or I'm gonna be successful.
That's right. You have to remember that a potential investor is always, you have to look at it from the point of view that it's their money that they might want to invest in you. So you can't just assume that everybody's going to think your idea is amazing. Yeah. Because it's going to be a much more hard-headed decision from an investor's point of view.
Well, empathy is an important thing for an entrepreneur to have, and having empathy for their investors as well is important.
That's right.
Hey, if I were that investor, would I risk my children's future on this outfit? Would I risk the roof over my head on this idea? And if you say, well, probably not, then you still need to get out there and learn more so that you can have that story.
And even if you think about venture capital, if you think about every 10 companies that they invest in, they've maybe got one, perhaps two successes, 2 or 3 that do okay, and the rest fail. So even if you've got the most fantastic pitch decks or whatever to get people interested, even then you can't guarantee that something's going to work. Therefore, those investors are going to be very cautious about what they invest in.
And what I found absolutely fascinating about this half an hour is everything is fitted in with the first statement, which is a startup is a learning organization. Everything we've been talking about is learning our customers, learning about ourselves, learning about us being entrepreneurial. So I think that's been a very apt discussion over this last 30 minutes. We're going to have to finish here, but we'll be running another drop-in next week, another live stream. So please join us. See you next week.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Simon.